Hi, guys. My name is Josiah, and I am the creator of the podcast Just a Little Gossip. This podcast series is such a fun one of my own creation, a project I've always wanted to create. In it, we focus on crazy, wild stories that you have from either work or even something personal that you want to share anonymously. I already have one user sent one in to me, and I'm so excited to share this and along for the ride. These are real stories. These are real people sharing these right now. Since I don't have a mass following, these are from my friends. I have it pulled up to the side, and I thought we would get cracking right into it. In the future, if you would like to share your story anonymously, you can send it at my email at josiahriggin3gmail.com. So that's JOSIAHRIGGIN3 to share your story. I would like to eventually have a co-host as well as other people involved, but for now, it's just me in my room. Let's get into this first story. Alrighty, this story was sent in from one of my friends. It's a very interesting story. I'm titling it The Case of the Vanishing Manager. Backstory, she works at a Realto store. I'm not going to say which one for legal purposes and not to get her in trouble. She worked at a Realto store who, in this case, they had a manager who was there and is not. So let's read. I have a script of it written out. I took notes on it, so we can read this together. So she sent this to me. I asked her to type the story, and how this works is I'm going to read what she sent, and we have, time to discuss it because buckle up. It's a very interesting story. I have my phone ready. I'm going to pull up the rest of it just in case. So here's what we have. So I worked in this Realto store for a couple of years. I was in charge of stocking and inventory. Pretty normal gig until one day it wasn't. So here's what happened. Our store manager, let's call him Steve, was one of the guys who just did enough not to get fired. Those people who always work and don't go above and beyond. They just get enough to go by day to day. How he was the manager, I have no idea. He was considered kind of lazy, but you know what? He did manage the store, so let's just go with that. During the shift, our corporate comes down to do a routine check. It is me, the assistant manager, and Steve on call. When asked where he went or if anyone saw him, we have not seen him. I say, I saw him this morning. He was wearing the red polo. But after that, no clue. Hours go by and we're all taking bets on whether he just quit on the spot or absolutely got abducted by aliens. As a little joke, please say that in. I thought that was funny. No, turns out he wasn't just gone. There's a little back room in the area that's kind of hidden away in a corner where boxes and stuff are set up for storage. Then, for 4 hours, when I go back almost after the end of my shift, I find him, where you ask? Inside one of the display tents in the camping section, asleep. Not only was he asleep, but he had stolen one of the display pillows and blanket. My man didn't just hide when corporate came down to look for him, but he was asleep. He must have planned this because he brought snacks. He literally was hiding from corporate like a raccoon in a backyard shed. So me, the stalker, wakes him up. And sees first words is not, oh no, how long have I been out? I meant to take a little nap. Is corporate still here? No, he goes and squints and says, what time is it? Let's pause for a second. So again, backstory. Works at a Realto store. She's the assistant. He's the main manager. He's quite lazy. He doesn't do his job well, but enough to get by. Corporate comes down to, now visit to check up on this location. When I worked in military, corporate would come down usually if there was issues. My guess is he wasn't doing his job well enough. So back to the story. I was like, bro, you took a nap. We've been looking for you forever. Where have you been? Why on earth would you vanish? And the best part he says, he was like, I just wasn't feeling it today. Okay, wild on there. The best part is he didn't even get fired. Nope. He just got a formal write-up and went right back to business as usual. Meanwhile, when I took a 3-minute break in the stock room, I got chewed out. Because that makes sense, right? How come corporate didn't fire him? The questions I'd like to know is, how does one get away with taking a nap and goes missing for hours on end and just shows up later as if nothing happened? And that, ladies and gentlemen, right there is the art of falling upwards. I have so many questions. So did Steve bring Pillow with him from home? Was there a full backup plan for emergency naps? And how do you sleep and disappear for hours in the store and not panic? She later explains to me this. She says most of the time no one notices him there anyways because he's so busy in the office doing nothing at all, not doing his job, and yet somehow he doesn't get fired. I guess if you're going to hide from your responsibilities, make sure you do it where, people won't find you. I had to add to this. I asked her later when we got talking, I was like, I have a story like that where our assistant manager from Corporation Subway, I'm going to say that because I don't work there, I'm not employed there, appeared. We found her later in the deep freezer section. Like, it's called the deep freezer, but it's like the big freezer in the back. She was on her phone. She disappeared. None of us could find her because we were so swarmed with customers. So it's not like this is an uncommon occurrence. Totally ridiculous, but very plausible. Lazy managers are everywhere. Happens all the time. So let's get into another little tidbit and story. Here's another one I had one that I wrote up from when I worked at Subway to get into this segment because I think it's crazy this happened. Let's jump into my story when I worked at Subway. Now, I didn't work there for more than 4 months. The main reason I didn't work there for more than 4 months was because of the managers. They were awful. Managers like this, they should not get hired and they don't get fired until corporate later decides to fire him or them. In this case, her name was Amanda. Amanda made life hell. Amanda made it really impossible to get stuff done. Here's when I decided to finally quit. Let's go back a little bit. So I'm into this job. I'm going through the training process. I'm going through everything. Everything's going well until it doesn't. As work is starting to pick up, I'm realizing, by the way, I was in high school. I was 17 at the time. I'm realizing this is not a good job. It becomes such stressful. You're trying to do multiple things at once, and it never works out. It's never working out. It never works out the way you want it to at all. So we go into this and we get into the store and we find out there's a huge order happening and our manager is not there. It's me and the assistant. It's me and 2 people. And I usually close, which is awful. We have this order from the football team from our high school and it's large. It's huge. So we call Amanda to ask her to help us. We're like, hey, we know you left and we know we're supposed to help with this, but we need help now, like ASAP. Anyway, she says no, she can't. She hopes we got this. Quit. I literally, when I see that 2 buses pull up of 12 plus people in each bus or more, I quit. I have a mental breakdown and I quit. I couldn't do it. It is ridiculous. That was ridiculous. We'll go into more of that later, but that was kind of the gist of horror stories of how it gets intense. Obviously, these are just little icebreaker stories. The one my friend worked at. There was one that I wanted to discuss real quick that I think is funny. This was one of my mom's stories where she worked at a restaurant and a guy choked on his own tooth. Crazy story there, right? Let's get into this one. I asked my mom to re-explain, so I wrote this down in notes. So she worked at, for legal reasons, I'm going to call it a bar and grill, just in case. She worked at this bar and grill for about 6 months, and honestly, nothing could prepare for what happened, she said, on a Friday night. It was busy, everyone was everywhere, the tables were always full. Well, 2 people and 2 of their friends came to join and threw off the vibe. She said they were very rude, snapping fingers, rolling eyes, acting like they owned the place. The food came out, and she said, I kid you not, this one guy takes a bite of his steak and just freezes. And she's thinking, oh my God, great. He's going to say it's gross. He starts to gag, she says, but not the gagging like it's overcooked or anything. But no, he starts gagging like, oh my gosh. She says, I start panicking, I start freaking out. His girlfriend's freaking out because he's literally choking at the table. So then they call one of the managers over, she says, and they do not CPR, but they pump out his, basically the chest compressions. And turns out he was choking on a piece of his own tooth. When he bit into the meat, it turns out he chipped his tooth. So it was a whole tooth that he choked on after he took a bite of his steak. During this process, he says the whole entire restaurant just stops. You could even hear the fry cook, the person in the back, just chill for a second, as if they just saw a ghost. He was freaking out, the girlfriend was freaking out, everything was going crazy. So moral of that is they got a free meal and he got compensation, I guess, for the meat being too, rubbery. So I have so many questions on that. How does that happen? Did the snake just find the tooth when he bit into it? Did he not notice he lost a tooth, like when you felt it? But either way, he ended up choking on it, which is super, super crazy. I know this podcast seems a little messy since it's my first one, but I want to, get your guys' thoughts on this, as this is my first episode. Eventually, I'd like to really expand on this. If you enjoy this and you want me to continue, please do, as this is a pilot testing episode, and these stories were just, things I had to pull from my friends and from my mom and from my own experience. If you have a story you'd like to share, again, that's JOSIAHRIGGIN 3@gmail.com. So hit me up and we can get you on like the phone or something, and we can make this a huge thing. Again, these are stories from either work and stuff, and we're going to work them together, because who can pay for therapy when you can have a free podcast to do so? Anyway, my name is Josiah, and I hope you have enjoyed this first little pilot episode. Again, hit me up and let's take this to a new level.